In the name of racial equity something or other, Biden releases a plan to hand out crack pipes to every drug addict. I'm not kidding. Also, Canada is facing the Freedom Convoy because truckers should stand up for their own rights. Ireland faces a similar situation, but their response was more focused on Disney. We'll explore all of this and more today on Right Side of the Road. Okay, we are now back to your regularly scheduled programming. Every Friday, you should be getting an episode of Right Side of the Road as long as I don't get sick again. So let's just jump right in. I'm not kidding when I say that the Biden administration is handing out drugs and encouraging them. Up until February 7th, people could apply for this program that is somehow supposed to keep people safe. I'm not sure. And I apologize for only telling you after the application period. That was a mistake on my part. Although obviously I don't actually encourage this, and you'll see why later. The things included in this package may be pipes for things like crack, clean needles, and other materials for the usage of drugs. According to Jen Psaki, there may be, quote, alcohol swabs, lip balm, and other materials to promote hygiene. Psaki, I'm going to call her that from now on because it's like pterodactyl, and I don't like that joke about the P's silent, so we're going to go with Psaki. Also denied that there will be pipes included. However, multiple different sources and spokespeople have confirmed that there will be pipes included in these kits. Here's problem number 1 of like 5 million. The Washington Free Beacon reported that, quote, applicants for the grant are prioritized if they treat a majority of, this is in quotes there, underserved communities, including African Americans and LGBTQ persons, as, air quotes, as established under President Joe Biden's executive order on advancing, quote, racial equity, end quote. So we're making drugs racially equitable? That's what I got from that. What in the absolute heck? I don't understand. Keep in mind that this package costs about $30 million. So where will that go, you ask? Either national debt, inflation, taxpayer dollars, or all of the three, meaning that your taxes or your parents' taxes will go straight into people doing drugs. This sounds like a great future for America. Another thing with race and taxpayer dollars, there's a stupid article out in NPR, which I shouldn't have to say. Every day an article comes out in NPR. Generally a good guess that it might not be a really great article. This article's just a little bit more intriguing, and it's so much longer than it needed to be, probably because it shouldn't exist in the first place, so it just should be not long at all. 0 words. And there's one quote that really stands out, or there's a lot of them, but I'm going to give you one. This is from NPR again. Quote, when white people send out a high five with white skin, it feels like sending a white high five, end quote. And I didn't say I said send out, it just says send. Anyway, the white is italicized, by the way. And this would seem obvious, the statement, in the same way that a black skin high five is a black high five. The author of this article suggests that a white high five carries some sort of racist undertones. I don't even know. Anyway, let's just set aside the fact that this article makes no sense in of itself. And actually, this is an argumentative strategy. I think that word fits there. That to meet the left on some of their own ground, because if you just keep arguing that their arguments make no sense in the first place, then you're not actually going to get anywhere because they're just going to keep arguing them, and it depends whether or not it does make sense or it doesn't make sense. If you say, this doesn't make sense, but I'm going to move into your actual points, you can find where they contradict themselves already. Like when I looked at the whole Disneyland thing, where they say there's an inherent risk of COVID, but you don't have to wear masks outside. So if you even meet them on the ground that there is an inherent risk of COVID everywhere, which there is, but you don't really need to worry about that. If you just meet them on that ground, you can see that why would we not wear masks outside? Oh, it's because that people are just going to hate everything and they're not actually going to go. So meet them on their own ground, and let's look at actually what you could take out of this. So again, the author suggests that a white high five carries some sort of racist undertones. And the first part of this article is about how freeing it is for black people to send black emojis. But for some reason, the white emojis are racist. And meeting them on the ground of this article and things that they're saying being true, it's either one or the other. Either we go back to the Simpsons yellow entirely, you can't hold down the thumbs up emoji and see the whole spectrum, or none of the emoji colors are racist. There's no other options. And the left here is searching for racism where there isn't any. in some cases in really obscure situations like emojis. And by the way, NPR is a taxpayer-funded organization, so your tax dollars went into this article. You're welcome. Let's go back to the free quack pipes. Quack pipes. Here's another problem with this bill. These packages are called, quote, safe smoking kits, end quote. That's an inherently flawed name. There will be no safe smoking. The purpose, which the left says, is to make the conditions in which you would smoke and do drugs safe, such as new pipes and clean needles. And I apologize for background noise again. And this is supposedly in order to prevent the spread of disease or infection when people smoke. The problem here is you can't be safe during a fundamentally destructive act. There's no safe conditions in which you can smoke completely safely, because smoking itself destroys your lungs and things. Think of it this way. Forgive me for being a little bit morbid, but this is like giving a suicidal person a pistol, but ensuring that they have safety goggles, earplugs, and a shooting range. The conditions in which he commits suicide may be safe, but his actions are destructive in of themselves. That's the same thing with these safe smoking kits, or whatever the heck you want to call them. They're making some external conditions safe, but the actual action that they're encouraging is destructive. Yes, I mean encouraging. Any support for anything from the government is directly encouraging to whatever is being encouraged. And I rewind 10 seconds and re-listen to that again, because I said encourage like 3 times. The government of Canada is mandating vaccines for truckers, and this makes no sense and the truckers know it. The reason this makes no sense is, first, mandates are stupid. Every time a mandate is suggested, I want to ask the left whatever the heck happened to their my body, my choice nonsense. Now, I never use that phrase seriously because it just stands for a horrible sin, but it shows the hypocrisy of the left. If you want a straight fact instead of just retorting things, because that can lead to some kind of an endless circle, I will say that the vaccine is too unsafe for people to actually be forced to get. Also, it's not under the government's authority. Also, most people are at such a low risk from COVID now that Omicron is here and the dominant strain that the vaccine isn't needed for every person to get. Now on to why this doesn't make sense for truckers. Even if this did stop the transmission of COVID between people in big gatherings or when a lot of people interact, which the vaccine doesn't, but again, meet the left on some of their ground, truckers wouldn't need it. They spend most of their day in their truck. 20-plus hour trips, sitting alone in the front of your truck. How the heck are you going to transmit COVID from doing that? The answer is, you could have COVID and then breathe out the COVID. And then that breathed COVID will be bounced off your dashboard. And then you get the COVID that you already have. And that is a terrible disaster. That's not actually going to happen, but it seems like the only fake logic that the left could even remotely use. Now, the truckers know this. They're protesting this mandate in Canada, like, quite a lot. They're blocking the streets. Some people were blocking a bridge with their trucks. They're gathering in large groups to protest the government. And I think that it's a great thing that these truckers are standing up against the stupid things that the government is doing. Canada, however, declared a state of emergency. The government has apparently no way to handle this, which seems kind of like a weak government because it's not very difficult to handle a small protest. Here's a few things that they've done. The police would take the gas out of trucks that are protesting and blocking the bridge, which also out of any trucks of protesters as they would find, which makes no sense because if you want a truck to move, don't take away its source of fuel. GoFundMe also withheld funds from the Freedom Convoy, which isn't part of the government, which is so terrible. I can't tell you how terrible this is. People donated millions of dollars, if I'm not mistaken, and the whole point of GoFundMe, their only promise, is that these funds will be distributed to where they're supposed to go. The convoy switched to a company called Give, Send, Go, which works pretty much in the same way, but there's a supposed secret website called Distributed Denial of Secrets, which is hacking into the donor files to Give, Send, Go, specifically those who donated to the Freedom Convoy, with the goal to get those donors targeted. So yeah, the Canadian government is doing great things. New Zealand is taking a more absurd approach. They're facing similar protests against vaccine mandates, although not specifically for truckers. There are huge crowds gathered to protest these mandates, and apparently the government of New Zealand is even worse than Canada at handling these things. First, the government used sprinklers, like probably the ones built into the grass that you'll see at your local park, to try and deter the protesters. And when that inevitably didn't work, they turned to their good friend Disney, or the left turned to their good friend Disney, and a few others. This is all according to Sky News. New Zealand's government took a few big speakers and played Celine Dion. Is that how you call it? Is that how you say it? My Heart Will Go On, as well as Let It Go from Frozen, they tried to use these songs to annoy the protesters away. After this, they played Baby Shark. Now, these are annoying songs, but when you're a government with actual resources at your disposal, don't choose music. If the protesters are actually breaking the law, which I'm not sure that they even were, you can use law enforcement. Like actually enforcing the law. I know this is a difficult concept for some of the leftists to actually get behind, but law enforcement, 2 easy words. Otherwise, there's nothing you should or can do. Honestly, New Zealand, though, you need to find a way to change your government. I don't know much about how it's like actually structured, New Zealand's government, but if your governmental leaders choose music over any actual good ways to solve problems, what happens if you get attacked? Bubbles? Maybe blind them with a soap solution when the bubbles pop? I'm not sure you'd be super safe. And sadly, that concludes this double week of Right Side of the Road. Our schedule should be normal moving forward, again, assuming my cough doesn't spike again. So, your government is using your tax dollars and spending them on drug addicts and useless news stories. If you can even call them news or journalism for that matter. Canada and New Zealand are taking even worse approaches. That's all for this week. I'll see you next week on Right Side of the Road. Aloha.